Right. You've always consistently refused this criticism on human rights, on a democracy that's not exactly a democracy, always saying this comes from the West or Western media or Western organization. Don't they have a point?
You've spoken a lot about democracy, and I would just like to point to the accusations of human rights abuses in terms of the elimination of your political opponents or the oppression of the press, and I would just like to hear your comments.
What I don't like is just the hypocrisy. You are so deep in your own mess about democracy, and then you think you have authority to come and make criticisms about others and even want that to have a consequence on them. It's just hypocrisy. And am I supposed to accept that?
Hello, wherever you are watching from, welcome to my YouTube channel. Now, in today's video, I'm going to react on a video of this Rwandan president, Paul Kagame. Now, before we continue, I want you to tell me in the comment section, the West countries, for example, United Kingdom, USA, France, do they have rights or do they have rights to question human rights in Africa, or do they have rights to question how democracy is being conducted in a country in Africa? Tell me in the comment section, because in this video, that's what I'm going to talk about. Now, there is these white reporters who were asking Paul Kagame question about human rights in Rwanda, and there's another video again of a reporter asking Paul Kagame about democracy and how Paul Kagame answered the question. It's what made me to react on this, because you know, let's listen to this video. Number one is a video of a reporter asking Paul Kagame about human rights.
You've spoken a lot about democracy, and I would just like to point to the accusations of human rights abuses in terms of the elimination of your political opponents or the oppression of the press, and I would just like to hear your comments towards that.
No, I would like to hear your comments, because for me, it's like, it's always difficult to accuse me of anything and then say, prove yourself innocent. I think I want to turn it to you and say, prove me guilty. That's where the problem lies. The press or human rights groups, what they say about me personally or about Rwanda, when you are in Rwanda and are dealing with these decent human beings also in Rwanda, and they tell you their own stories, you won't trace even 0.001% of what they're talking about. The real life there is completely different from what the young girl is talking about. Absolutely different. But people will stay here, will be here in the US and wherever, and they've never even been to Rwanda, they've never met Rwandans. The real Rwandans, they are there. Rwandans are there. The real people of Rwanda who are no different from you, what you aspire to be, to have, to do, they are no different. But it's as if Rwanda is treated like a botanical garden where you just go and water flowers and, no, human beings like anyone in this room. Absolutely. So these so-called human, don't know what. I tell you, half of my life, I've been living in the trenches, not sure of living to the next day. I didn't fight to be the president of my country. Never. It came by accident, I think. So I was fighting for my own rights, which anyone in any human rights organization could not give me, and even now cannot give me or cannot give Rwandans. So it's cynical and absurd that anyone would just be there talking about violations, me as the leader of my own people to be accused of violating their rights. It's just an absurd insult. But my answer is simple.
Now, welcome back. I come to understand that human rights in Africa, a lot of countries in Africa, we have a problem with human rights, okay? Uganda, Rwanda at some point, even Tanzania. You've seen yesterday, is it today, there's an opposition leader was being abducted and now is found dead. This is the issue of human rights. But do the West country has right to ask about human rights in African country? Because I've never seen an African country, I've never seen a president from African country or a reporter from African country asking about the human rights of the countries that are not in Africa. Because reporters from the white reporters are always on, the question they are asking African leaders. I've never seen African reporters asking the same question to the white leaders when they come to visit here in Africa. So that's what I was wondering. Do they have to mingle between the issues of human rights in Africa? Because if we talk about human rights, civilization and all those, it's the white supremacy. They are the one causing a lot of inhuman things in Africa, because they are the one who are causing wars in Africa. Most of them, they are the one who creating problem in Africa, and yet they will come talking about human rights. But they know they are behind this. They know they are behind everything that is happening. Most of them, not all of them. For example, the issue of Congo. There is a white supremacy behind the war and the atrocity that is happening in Congo. And that's the issue of human rights. For example, the protests that we had in Kenya, a lot of people were being killed in Kenya. But the problem started with IMF. The problem started with high taxation. The problem started with high cost of living. High taxation, high cost of living, all of them is being caused by the white supremacy. And when the people went to protest, some of them were killed. And that is issue about human rights. But deep down, the white supremacy is behind all these failures, is behind all the killings, is behind. Even if it is indirect, but somehow they are being linked as the source of the problems. Because I had even President Ruto saying that the protest is being sponsored by a group, a United States group. That is from the white. So they are behind the issue of human rights in Africa. I don't see if there's a reason for them asking us about human rights, and yet they don't ask themselves about human rights. That's how Kagame answered the question. I don't know if he answered it well to you, but for me, I think he was right to ask, don't come in Africa and ask us about human rights, because we don't ask you, and again, you are the one who are causing a lot that are going or are causing these inhuman issues across the people. But again, it's good to ask about human rights, It's good to ask about what is happening in the country. And if there is issue in a country about human rights and someone come and ask, we need clean answers. Like, we are doing this to protect our people. We are doing this to stop abduction. We are doing this to stop this and this. It's good to ask to. Number two is about this video of a reporter asking about democracy in Rwanda. Let's listen to this.
Right. You've always consistently refused this criticism on human rights, on a democracy that's not exactly a democracy, always saying this comes from the West or Western media or Western organization. Don't they have a point at all?
Wouldn't I have a point if I criticize the Western democracy?
Sure.
Yeah. So what is the problem? If democracy is not going to be perfect anywhere at all, as we have seen, as we always see, we see that. You know. What I don't like is just the hypocrisy. You are so deep in your own mess about democracy, and then you think you have authority to come and make criticisms about others, and even want that to have a consequence on them. It's just hypocrisy. And am I supposed to accept that?
Well, as a last question, you were elected in 2000, so 22 years in power. The next election is scheduled in 2024. You haven't said whether you would run, but do you consider running or?
Well, I would consider running for another 20 years.
Really?
I have no problem with that.
Really?
Yes. Yes. But
This means the president.
We're talking about elections.
Yes.
Again, this is the contradiction and the hypocrisy I'm talking about.
Well, there could be limit on the mandates, right?
Elections are about people choosing, isn't it?
Right. When they're free and fair, yes.
And that's yes, okay. But you haven't at least of all the criticisms you have had, nobody has said the elections have not been free or fair. But we have had it in other places that people don't even talk about, including even people who complain about us. So don't you have, right now as we speak, we are having cases in the developed world about election.
Right.
You remember not so long ago, there is a case going on somewhere in very advanced democracy about
The United States, yes.
somebody who wants to. So this is, I think people have to decide what they want to do for themselves. You see, you have problems of your own that somebody should be questioning, and then you want to, be the one to dictate what I should be doing. At the same time, even with the contradiction, because if you are talking about elections, and the election is about people choosing.
Yes, sir, but there could be.
You are saying if it is free and fair, but that has not been the accusation. The accusation is different. Even the one you started, you are not talking about how free or not free the elections are. You are talking about just having to choose so many times. I think that this is different.
Right, but people could say, I'm not going to be president for life. There should be limits.
Which people are you talking about?
Well, you have debates in many African countries about 2 terms. I mean, we've had it, you're having it in Senegal, in Ivory Coast and others, because they say a person after a while in power should leave and maybe...
That's fine. That's fine. I have no problem with that. But people can also say a different thing. So which one are you supposed to accept? People can say that, yes, and I would accept it. But if they said the other one also, I would accept it. So what is the issue here? Anyway, why would anyone be so concerned about our own situation, which the people of Rwanda seem to be happy about, that is working for them, but somebody says, no, that should not happen in Rwanda. We haven't been questioning what is happening elsewhere. As I said, if you criticize me, I will criticize you, because there are things somebody is doing that are not right, even against me, and then he comes around and starts blaming me for what I'm doing that is working for me. For me, I'm just even basing on simple logic.
Now, welcome back. About democracy in Rwanda. It's a good question. For me, I found it a good question. Do we have democracy in Rwanda? I don't know. Because in the last election, I saw Paul Kagame won the election with 99% of votes. It's either people love him so much or just they can't get a chance to vote. It's either people love Paul Kagame so much, or either they are not given chances to express themselves. Because Kenya is the only country that at least has democracy, freedom of speech, freedom of vying for any seat anywhere you want. Anyone can vie for a seat. But these other countries like Tanzania, Uganda, Rwanda, democracy is something that need to be talked about. I don't know if but Rwandese people are saying Paul Kagame is good, and the answer is saying that we don't ask you about your democracy. I've never seen African asking about democracy of certain country. Last time when Donald Trump was running against Joe Biden and Biden won the election, accusation was all over that the votes were somehow, but African countries did not mingle in their affairs. If we are being left as a country to run our own affairs, this is my brother. Whenever it comes some tension, so to some extent, you cannot pass the extent because I'll be ruining my country. But when some white supremacy is coming in the middle of our country, if they decided to eat the country, they will eat the country to 100%. And they'll make sure this other party will be fighting the other party. They'll make sure you fight. They'll make sure you quarrel so that they will find a good way to pass in between and do their things. Democracy is something that we have to leave for the people to decide. I cannot go to Tanzania as the president of Kenya and ask them about their democracy. Because if we someone to ask about democracy, let our own countries in Africa, like me questioning the democracy of Rwanda is okay because we are all Africans and they are our brothers. Me questioning about the democracy of Uganda is okay. But white supremacy, white or the West questioning the democracy of African countries, I get it so awkward because I can never question the democracy of Vietnam, democracy of France, the democracy of Switzerland, because I don't wanna interfere with their own affairs. If I haven't come to you and tell you, speak something about it, you don't have business in this. So Paul Kagame answered it in a way that, don't ask us about democracy because we don't ask you about democracy. But my question to all Rwandese, is there democracy in Rwanda? Because somehow I get to understand that I can see a person as my father. Whenever I do something bad, he's still my father. There's a way, a state, I see people of Uganda, they carry Museveni as their father. Because he removed them in a deep hole. Paul Kagame too removed Rwanda in a war. Rwanda was burning, but Paul Kagame managed to get into power and to seize the fire that was going on in Rwanda. So the people of Rwanda, most of them, they believe Paul Kagame is the best person for the country, so that they don't see any reason for democracy. They don't see any reason for freedom of speech. There's some things we are talking here in Kenya, you can never talk in Rwanda, because once you do that, you are being abducted, you are being tortured. So it was a good question from this white reporter. And again, because we don't interfere with their issues, we will say, don't ask us that. But for me, as a citizen of Africa, I will say we need to hear from Paul Kagame himself that about the issue about democracy. We need to hear from Ugandan president the issue about democracy. We need to discuss these issues, but from the right angle, from the right people, from the one that needs to hear about it, not some white supremacy or the one who want to take over the country. Because even if we come into democracy, a country that do not have good democracy somehow is being linked to the white supremacy, because they are happy that the country is burning. They are happy that the country is going down, because they believe in dividing and rule. It's not like China, you know. Tell me in the comment section what do you think about this topic. I think it's two good topics, human rights and democracy. And here is in Africa, do you think African countries human rights are being protected, or do you think African countries, all of them, have democracy? Mention in the comment section which country do you think does not have democracy, and we're gonna react about it on some next video. Otherwise, it's pleasure to be here. I am the Kenyan Beast, of course. We are doing it the African way, and peace be with you.